Okay, Iron Bill here. It's been a long time since I've done it, but this is Destiny 1. I am actually playing Destiny 1. Kind of a blast from the past sort of a deal, but our clan member, Leo Askin, has been talking about downloading and playing Destiny 1, and the thought of actually getting a group of people together to do Destiny 1 raids again sure does appeal. And so I thought, why not? I'm going to pop in here today and jump on my Warlock and give it a spin. And so here's some footage of Leo and I playing. I'm helping him through one or two steps of his initial campaign. And yeah, it moves pretty quickly in the early parts. And, you know, this is PS4. And honestly, it's still a pretty game. A lot of great memories. And man, I live in here. I looked at my hours on this today. Yeah, somebody on the Discord had talked about, you know, being a certain number of hour player, and I thought, well, I wonder how many hours I did actually have in it. And it turned out I had over 3,200 active hours of playtime in this, you know, in the 3 years that I played it. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it is a fact. That's what I did. So anyway, just to kind of go over some basic differences in the game if you should decide to give it a try. First and foremost is movement itself. Movement is much quicker in this game if you've never played it before. And that is that you really do cover ground quickly, even on the run. It was always better. Now, it does have one odd twist or two, and one of them is that you can't just sprint on command. If you sprint and stop, you've got about a 3 or 4 second cooldown before you can sprint again, and the reason for that was that they didn't want players spamming shoulder charge as Titans. Or at least that's what they stated. And there are artifacts which you can gain from one of the DLCs that can override this, which will enable you to sprint on command. So that's a kind of another difference. The way artifacts worked back in Destiny 1 was different. You had multiple artifacts instead of just one, so you had multiple ways to set up your player. I mean, and really a lot more customization capability in Destiny 1 with regards to your character and artifact and how they would interact. And this video doesn't need to go into depth in that. It's just to say it's different, and I think in a lot of ways better. Although there's some pretty cool things, builds that you can do now with the current artifacts, so people might argue that case, that we're actually better off now. Okay, so another thing, you had only 3 stats that you had to worry about, and that was strength, intellect, and discipline. Now, strength, of course, is your melee ability would come back quicker. Your discipline is your grenade, and your intellect is your super. And it really was just that basic. One of the goals by the time we got to year 3 was to get what was called a tier 12 setup. And I have that here in my Warlock. And the way you do that is that each of your disciplines is segmented into 5 pieces. And I maxed out 2 of them. I maxed out discipline and strength, and I took intellect to level 2. Now, the reason I chose that was, at the time, I really wanted my melee and grenade back because I wanted to have a very strong game in that area, because supers come back within about 3 minutes in Destiny 1. That's another major difference. You'll find that you can really spam your abilities a lot more because you just have them available to you more often. Grenades and melee being very important, particularly in PvP. Yeah, so I set it up that way. What else? Oh, this gun that I have. I'll talk about weapons just a little bit. This is the Godroll Hung Jury. It's a scout rifle, an Omelon, real clean scope. It has Firefly, Outlaw, and I think Triple Tap on it. And it's a combination of perks that you just can't get. Not even in Destiny 1. It was so good that, and it was sold by a vendor, a faction vendor, believe it or not. And it sold for weeks, and not everyone bought it. And then all of a sudden, people noticed it was good, and Bungie took it out of the vendor, which is classic Bungie. So yeah, I got one, and it's one of those guns that stays in my vault and will never leave. And you know, you whip it out for the big heavy events. It's a good heavy lifter. It's a good jack of all trades. Great gun. Now there are some guns that I like better in many ways, but if you want a good steady choice, this would have been the one. All right. And the reason I mention that is that a lot of the guns in Destiny 1 had a very distinctive flavor. Fatebringer, Vision of Confluence, Vex, Icebreaker. You know, there really is nothing like that right now that stands out that much. I mean, Revoker is widely used because of one perk. But in terms of its handling and the way it behaves, there are actually sniper rifles that behave better. So I think if you took that one perk out of it, people would find other guns to use. Whereas a lot of the guns, like Fatebringer, was just fun to use. It wasn't any one perk that made it a great gun. It was just a good all-rounder. Vision of Confluence, the same way. Vex Mythoclast, nothing behaved like a Vex Mythoclast. I mean, nothing at all, ever, will be the Vex but the Vex. So, you know, weaponry-wise, it was a more diverse and interesting game, I feel like. And maybe hindsight is a little kinder than the actual reality is, but the truth is, especially in year one, there were some truly awesome and legendary guns. And I didn't even mention Gallahorn, you know, the mother of all rocket launchers. And in its heyday, oh my goodness. All right, so my goal here by playing with Leo was to help him, first of all, survive, but secondly, just to prime up enemies for him so that he could finish them off with a final shot, because he's trying to gain experience. And this brings us to the final point that I would talk about. In Destiny 2, when you get a new gun or piece of armor, you slap it on and it's good to go. Destiny 1, not so. In Destiny 1, you had to gain experience with that weapon or armor. You had to upgrade it, and you had to open it up node by node so that you could eventually use the full capability of whatever it was that you'd acquired. Again, you know, I'm not so sure that our current system is better. I mean, yeah, for the casual player, get your stuff, put it on. That's good, and I suppose there's a real argument to be had for that, but for the player who comes in every day and needs a reason to continue to play, to get that dopamine because you've accomplished something, that sense of pleasure that you get from getting something done, even little things like upgrading your armor or upgrading your weapon, having it ready for the next raid. You know, I remember getting my icebreaker and thinking, okay, now, you know, I've really got to play my patrols and do all my stuff for the coming week, so I've got that thing ready for the next raid. Because it could take a week for that for a gun to get upgraded like that completely. So it was one of those things you definitely had to work at, and yeah, I miss it. I'm not gonna lie, I do miss that part. So with that said, I don't know if there's a whole lot more ground to cover here. I think that for people who've never done Destiny before, Destiny 1, it's definitely worth a look, and the raids are outstanding. They are some of the funnest raids we ever did, as far as I'm concerned. So I hope you guys see this. I hope you decide to take the plunge, build up a character, and let's dip into this once in a while as a group and have a good time. So this is Iron Bill, and I am going to sign out.